Hello, I'm Chirag Sharma and welcome back to The Tryst. On this show, we don't just read the headlines, we break down the machinery behind them. And today, the machinery behind the very engine of Indian diplomacy is flashing red. This government's all in bet on America has backfired spectacularly. We are faced with record high tariffs, we have a neighborhood problem, and there is perhaps nobody better to break this down for us than the man who has sat in the highest chair of Indian diplomacy, the former External Affairs Minister of India, and the current chairperson of the INC's Foreign Affairs Department, Mr. Salman Khurshid. So, welcome to the Tryst.
Thank you.
So, before we begin with the foreign policy related dialogue, I'd like to address something that's been in the news. There was this recent news break about the travel of the leader of the opposition, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, to Germany this month. And the government has started questioning this in relation to, and they've essentially alleged that the LOP travels abroad needlessly and he's on a holiday and there's essentially no need for the LOP to travel abroad. What do you have to say in regards to that?
This is amusing. It's alarming. It's shocking. What shall I say? These are issues that are being raised about the leader of opposition's travel at a time when the Prime Minister himself is traveling. I mean, is it a monopoly that only one side of the political spectrum is allowed to go abroad and the other side is not? After all, there is a stature and a standing that Mr. Gandhi has across the globe. Without having become Prime Minister, he has that stature. And people seek his presence. People look forward to interacting with him. Scholars and diplomats and university level people, etc., institutions, all seek attention from him. And right now, he is representing Congress Party, he's representing India at the confluence and the conference of Progressive Alliance. 117 progressive parties across the globe, 30 of whom are in power. And we've established a higher level of contacts with them when they invited them to come to the Bharat Summit last year in Telangana. And they've reciprocated and they really anxiously were looking forward to Mr. Gandhi. So it was something that was given a very serious thought to. And finally, it was decided that the Prime Minister can be away. An important international event like this must be addressed. And that's where he is. He's been invited to the presidium of a very powerful worldwide organization which will settle issues about progressive politics even as the world begins to accommodate and adjust the new world order. And I think there couldn't have been a more important pressing time than right now for Mr. Gandhi to travel. And I'm really glad that he finally chose to travel.
Very well, sir. That drives me to the second part of this question. And that is this idea that's floated around a lot on social media, specifically on X and even on Indian news channels, that there's a George Soros angle, a foreign hand to the LOP's foreign trips.
I've heard this. 12 years in government and there is no smoking gun evidence as far as the government is concerned. I mean, you just don't keep throwing things at people and you throw because you're participating in something which happens elsewhere, which is anti-Semitic sort of approach to world affairs. Is it something of that kind? Is it just sheer frustration? I think this is a very base thought, can just be dismissed completely. It's completely and totally untrue.
With that out of the way, I'd like to move to the foreign policy aspect of things. The first thing, sir, that I started with is what I'm calling the failed bet on America. So, for the last decade, at least since this government took power, we've essentially put everything in the American basket in terms of investment, economics, military trade deals, etc. Given that investment seems to now be backfiring. Do you think this is a failure of this government's transactional one track bet on a single leader?
Well, one can hardly congratulate them for having achieved this. Um, it was all very well to say that we have a special friendship, a lot of hugging and kissing, etc. We have a lot that we stand to gain, and of course, in terms of words that we use on the other side, my best friend so and so, and my best friend so and so. But the fact remains that when you look at the ground reality, there isn't very much to celebrate, frankly. 50% tariffs, the restrictions on our qualified people going to the US, and a host of other things, including very disconcerting messages given as far as Operation Sindoor was concerned. I think sadly, it's a complete throwaway of whatever relationship we had, which could be conducive to a lasting, sustainable structure between ourselves and the US. And I think it's very, very sad that that's happened. And we did it. We did it for a long time over the last decade. We did it for a long time at the expense, in a sense, of the emotional bond that we had with Russia. Now that Russia finds itself also isolated in many ways, and therefore reaching out back to us, and we celebrating that, look, Russia is here and President Putin is here, etc., is fine, because we've had a long-lasting relationship with Russia. But I think that we didn't really understand how important it was, and we're still beginning to wake up to that once again. So, given the situation as it stands today, some repair has happened of some relationships, but there's a whole lot of disrepair as well. And to use foreign policy as a transactional tool is something that is very clearly a matter of complete failure.
So I'm glad you mentioned Operation Sindoor and the idea of using foreign policy as a transactional tool, because that perfectly brings me to my next question, and that is related more to the neighborhood. Specifically, in your essay in the book India Stitched with the World, you write how India's approach to the neighborhood must be more proactive, but must also be more values based. Given in context of what has happened post Operation Sindoor, the lack of support from any major country abroad, and also given that we've alienated historic partners within the neighborhood, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, etc., uh, do you think India has given up its role of being a net security provider in South Asia, in our neighborhood, and is now what we see being increasingly called a regional bully by many of these countries and many of the opposition parties in these countries?
Yeah, I think some of the trends in our region are disconcerting, very unsatisfactory. We have known for a long time, certainly during the years that we've been in government, we've known for a long time that complete mathematical reciprocity is not possible in the SAARC region. They are much smaller countries, much smaller economies, etc., but extremely valuable. If we want to be world leaders, you've got to begin at home. I mean, if you're not leaders in your region, how are you going to be world leaders? It's anyone's guess to answer that question. And I think something has gone wrong. I think there may well be problems at home for many of our neighboring countries. They have to deal with their own young generations. They have to deal with transformations that's happening in their societies. And of course, we can only as best understand what's happening there if representatives of the governments there understand what is happening. But the end result, of course, is that there is a sense that India has failed its neighbors, which is not true. We've done so much for our neighbors, and we need to continue doing for our neighbors. But if there is such a sense anywhere, whether it's in Nepal or it's in Bangladesh or it's in Sri Lanka, well, that's unfortunate. That's really, really sad. And I believe that we need to go back to the drawing board and work hard on this.
Right. That's a good lesson for the current dispensation, I must say. So the third aspect then is a rather alarming observation that you put out in your essay, and that is in regards to the hijack. What you allege is the hijacking of the Indian Foreign Service by the overseas Friends of the BJP or by other Sangh Parivar affiliated organizations operating abroad. Uh, do you believe that Indian accomplished diplomats in India in the foreign service are being sidelined, and how much of India's foreign policy failure stems from this hijacking of the foreign policy apparatus by ideologically aligned think tanks and
See,
groups?
I'm very firm in my belief that we have possibly the world's best diplomats. We have a remarkable diplomatic service, the Indian Foreign Service. We have remarkable people who manned it, but not just for the first time. This has happened before in the BJP governments that have come to power. But now it's a rather wholesale affair that the professional diplomatic expertise is put way behind, and the political ideological forefront is taken seriously at the cost of diplomats. And one is obviously there are some diplomats or former diplomats who would see this as a signal to switch and take to ideology instead of diplomacy. But it's a very sad thing for a remarkable service to come down to this, and for people to be conscious of the fact that they have to work within constraints of an ideology that may not necessarily be comfortable with them, or they may not be comfortable with it. But that's what's happening, and I think this would be a very lasting loss, because recouping them and putting it back on track would take a very long time.
Right. That you speak of an ideological decay, a professional decay, but if we add to that decay us what you consider a capacity crisis in your essay, and that is related to the Indian diplomatic corps is severely understaffed for the size of power that we aspire to be. Uh, you also specifically put out a very scathing attack of the current external affairs minister. You call him a glorified spokesman, and you specifically mention that Indian policy is being run by an ex-intelligence official in the NSA. Given that, sir, do you think that India's diplomatic wisdom has instinctively been replaced by more hawkish stances, a hawkish instinctiveness that has started to take control of institutional memory?
Yeah, well, I agree. Absolutely, there is a huge amount of subtlety in diplomacy. The whole idea of diplomacy is to achieve something that has to be achieved without brute force. That's the whole idea of diplomacy, and I think that's less and less apparent now in the manner in which people approach foreign policy. Foreign policy is seen more as a matter of muscle or borrowed muscle, somebody else's muscle that helps you, etc. Making pronouncements about being Vishwagurus and leaders of the world should be coming from other people. It should be coming as appreciation for what you have done or what you are capable of and what your capacity is, not self-proclamations that, here I proclaim myself to be I number one. Now, maybe there's a style that is prevalent in some parts of the world. I mean, certainly in the United States of America of late, but that's not ever been India's style. India's style has always been far more value-based, far more sensitive, far more courteous, and far more diplomatic in the true sense of the word. And I'm sorry that we seem to be losing that.
Right. So the style debate brings me essentially to my last question, and that is related to a very alarming report that came out last year and has been in the news recently regarding the expulsion of Indian intelligence officials from countries such as the US, the UK, Germany, Australia. And so, given that this is the first time this has happened since 1968, essentially, when the RAW was established, uh, there are it's a two-part question essentially. Of course, countries spy on their friends at times. That's a very well-known fact in statecraft. But so, do you believe that the damage that these revelations might cause or have caused, uh, uh, do you think that's a damage that can be repaired? And is that changing the world's view of India as a diplomatic country?
Well, you can't be a die-hard pessimist to say that if something is damaged, you can't repair it. But the whole idea of being being active in public life is to say that if something goes wrong, you need to put it right. But you should have the wherewithal, and you should have the capacity and the willpower to put it right. Now, if something like this has happened, and clearly it's unfortunate that it's happened, it's an indication of several failures. It's an indication of failure of our assets, what kind of assets we've placed wherever we place them, to the fact that they had to be expelled in the manner in which they've been expelled is an indication of people beginning to see us lose goodwill. It's a shattering of our goodwill. Otherwise, the compulsion that we have, or all countries have, of keeping tabs of what their friends and not so friendly people are doing, obviously it has to be done in a manner which is subtle and a manner which doesn't raise the hackles of your host country. So if it's happening in this manner, clearly something is wrong. And is it incompetence? Is it arrogance? Is it inability to provide cover? There are a lot of questions that somebody has to answer. But because this is in the area of intelligence, any questions themselves can be put in the spotlight by saying that you're doing the sort of thing that we are accused of, that you're not faithful enough to the country. But you can be faithful to the country by being careful about how your country deals with other countries, because ultimately the test of friendship is what matters, and the test of friendship has to be a dual test. It has to be from both sides. It can't be from one side. So we can't just be expected to be friends and philosophers and guides and have the other country not see us in that way. So, as I said, a lot of work to be done there, and this is something that should obviously not be repeated.
So that's a perfect note to
Okay.
end this discussion on. Thank you so much for being so candid with us today.
Thank you.
We hope you found this discussion insightful, and as candid as this discussion was, Sir's essay in the book India's Tryst with the World is even more insightful. Thank you so much for joining us, and we highly recommend reading Mr. Salman Khurshid's essay in the book India's Tryst with the World.
That's kind of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.